Hello, Chavra, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. This week there was unbelievable, inspiring news from Eretz Yisrael about the last fallen soldier that was returned home. Mamish, unbelievable, Gilui Elokus, a testimony to the achdus of the whole Am Yisrael together, as we'll discuss today. And it was that story that inspired me to today's Shir and Dvar Torah. But as usual, first we'll begin with tzedakah, Gedela tzedakah shemakareves agula. Mashiach should come now. Then we'll say a pasuk, and this pasuk is going to be directly related to what we're going to speak about today, and that's in Kapitel Kuf Yud Daled, pasuk Gimel. It's part of the Tehillim that we say during Hallel, and it starts with B'tzeis Yisrael mi Mitzrayim. This kapitel talks about as the Yidden were going out of Egypt, which is this week's Parshas Beshalach, and we're giving praise to Hashem. And the pasuk over there says, Hayam Rav Hayonois. The sea saw. We have a seesaw. The sea saw, and it fled. And over here's a medrash that said, what did the sea saw? It saw the Oren Shel Yosef, the casket that was carrying Yosef's bones. So this is what we're going to speak about today in Mitzvah Hashem. And primarily, what I'm speaking today is taken from a sikha of Chelik Chavav, Beshalach Aleph. But of course, Ten Chacham v'Yechemei, the Rebbe wants us to add, so it's not all from the sikha. But let's go directly to the pasuk. In this week's Parshas Beshalach, we speak already how the Yidden went out of Egypt, as it said in last week's Parsha. But Vayhi Beshalach Parei Yisrael, Parei is now going to chase Bnei Yisrael. And this week's Parsha, which is one of the most adventurous, you could say, or happening Parsha in the Torah, we have the Mon, we have Kriyas Yamsov, we have Amalek. It's a very interesting Parsha. In any case, in all these grand situations that are happening in this week's Parsha, the whole nation goes out of Egypt. The Torah decides to tell us a very important detail right here. And what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says that Vayasev Elikim Esom Derech HaMidbar Yamsuf. Hashem took the people around toward the way of the wilderness of the Sea of Reeds. And Rashi explains, Vayasem Esibum En HaDerech HaPshuta LeDerech HaAkuma. He went on a roundabout journey. It wasn't direct. And Rashi explains why. See there. But in any case, as the pasuk describes the journey of the entire nation, right there it says, Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imoi. And Moshe takes the bones of Yosef with him. Ki Ashbeya is Bnei Yisrael, because Yosef had made the Bnei Yisrael swear, Leimer Pocket Yivkid Elkim Eschem V'alisem Etzas Moitza Mizeh Itchem. You should bring my bones up from here with you. So the pasuk, in the middle of the redemption and the exodus and the liberation of the entire nation, says this point over here, that Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him. So obviously over here there's many questions. What's up as falta sarayin over here? Why is it so important to mention? And actually in the end of Parshas Vayechi, the pasuk already over there says in Bereshis Kapitel Nun pasuk Chafhei, next to the last pasuk at the end of Vayechi, it says Vayashba Yosef Meisol Leimer Pocket Yivked Elikim Eschem V'alisem Mesatzmoisai Mizeh. Yosef tells him, don't forget to take my bones with you. So it's the end of Parshas Vayechi that it's important detail to mention. And over here, as the entire nation, millions and millions of people are leaving, the Torah makes a stress that Moshe took Yosef's bones. So first of all, and this is the couple of questions that I've asked over here. Number one, it seems from the pasuk, from the Chumash, that the Torah mentions that after it says Vayasav Elikim, that this taking along of Yosef's bones was important for the whole journey. In other words, the idea of a midbar, a desert, an inhospitable elements. We need Yosef to give us the power in order to be able to survive and thrive in a desert. Number one. So it's not only that on a personal level, since Yosef made the Yidden swear, so therefore we have to fulfill Yosef's personal desire because we made an oath, but it's much more general, much more all-encompassing to the whole history and survival of the Jewish nation. How do we understand that? Also, what's the lesson over here for eternal Torah's Miloshnei Ra? What's the lesson in the fact that the Torah tells us that Moshe took Yosef's bones with him? And last but not least, just a klotz kasha, and this is wherein really lies the whole key. Someone should ask, a regular person, it says the bones of Yosef. They took the bones of Yosef. What happened to his whole body? Why is it called the bones? So, there's many different commentators that speak about this. There's Gemara in Soita, Daf Yud Gimel Amar Aleph and Yud Beis that talks about the whole sugya of Yosef leaving Egypt and Moshe occupying himself with him. But first, let me say what the Rebbe says, and then we'll go back, rewind to some of the details that comes out from different places. The Rebbe says that the word atzmois, bones, is related to the idea of etzem, essence. So when the pasuk says atzmois Yosef, it doesn't mean it didn't take his body. But Parshas, Yosef is an ultimate tzaddik from the greatest tzaddikim that ever lived. We know from many tzaddikim, including recent tzaddikim, like the Rebbe Rashab, the famous story where his body had to be moved in I forgot which year, either in the 20s or the 30s. And the body was complete. So Kolshkein, obviously, if we have stories of recent tzaddikim gemurim that their bodies are complete and didn't disintegrate, dissolve, chas v'sholem. So Kolshkein, I don't want to say Kolshkein tzaddikim, who am I, but I'm saying in general. So if we're talking about mamish tzaddik elyon, Yosef is called tzaddik elyon, which means in a certain sense he's like the ultimate tzaddik. So Yosef ha tzaddik, he's called ha tzaddik. So definitely it's not that his bones were taken out of Egypt, but it was his full body. So why are we using the term bones? And the Rebbe says it's not an honorary title. And the answer is because we're not referring to the bones. It brings out the concept. We took the essence of Yosef with us. We needed the essence of Yosef in order to be able to survive whatever the journey was going to be coming. And in general, the journey of the Jew, the wandering Jew in exile for the next who knows how many years. Including after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the lesson and the relevance for Atzmos Yosef today. But before we get to the Rebbe's Vort, which I'll tell you what is the Rebbe's Vort, I want to say a couple of other things. First of all, the Gemara says, one pshat. What does it mean? I'm saying according to the Gemara, why over here, Taka, there's the Pasuk mention that they took Atzmos Yosef. So one explanation is because right after this pasuk where it says that they took Atzmos Yosef, two pasukim later it says Vashem hoylech lifneihem yoimam b'amud onon lanchoisam aderech v'layla b'amud eish lahoylem lelechas yoimam v'loyla. Wow. Over here is the first mention of Anania Kovid, that miraculous supernatural clouds of glory that protected the Yidden. So, the pasuk is teaching us two things over here. One, the Gemara brings out how Moshe took Yosef out of Egypt. How do you know where he's buried? Look up the Gemara. But Moshe said to Yosef, now is the time to rise. The glory is coming out. The Shekhinah is coming out. There's Anania Kovid. And the Gemara says this was a reward for Yosef because Yosef gave his father Yaakov the most grand, glorious funeral. Just for example, in Pesant, I looked at the Gemara today, the Gemara says, Shloisham v'shisha ksarim notl ba'areinu shel Yaakov. There was 36 crowns that were hanging from Yaakov's Oren, casket. I'm saying that's just one small detail. So Yosef went all out. He got the entire country to mourn after Yosef. The Gemara even to mourn after Yaakov. The Gemara says even the cows and the donkeys, whatever that means. See the Gemara as they state that the cows and the donkeys were mourning. So since Yosef respected his father in such a grand manner, so too Yosef was rewarded that the Anani HaKoved are connected immediately with the appearance of Yosef's body. And that's why it says it over here. Because as the Pasuk introduces Anani HaKoved, which is the most powerful, super miraculous force and energy, and they too are partaking in Yosef's funeral now, once again accompanying Bnei Yisrael out of Egypt. That's one word. Another word, another lesson, Stam. I like to learn lessons that mean something to everyone. Even in Pshita Shemikra, another Pshat the Gemara says over there, Seita Daf Yud Gimel Amar Aleph, the Gemara says, Milonu Gadol Mi Yosef, who had a greater burial than Yosef? It means when now, at this time. And why? Because Moshe himself occupied himself with dealing with Yosef's body. And that's the deal on the pasuk over here. Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef. There's Moshe, there's Canaan, there's Yosef. There's lots of tzaddikim. Who's the one that occupies himself with Yosef HaTzadik? Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest of the great, is the one who deals with Yosef. And the Gemara Taka says, Ton Rabbanan Borei Kam Chvivus Mitzvahs al Moshe Rabbeinu. Look how special mitzvahs are to Moshe Rabbeinu. Shekol Yisrael Kol Nesasku Bebiza. All the Eden were busy taking the plunder of Egypt, which the Chayr, that was also what the Eibush commanded the Eden to do. But Vuhu Nesasik B'mitzvahs, Moshe was the one that was occupied with the ultimate mitzvah, dealing with Yosef's body. Shenema Chacham Lev Yikach Mitzvahs. The wise in heart will take mitzvahs. So the point is to bring out that none other than Moshe Rabbeinu himself, Bichvayde B'atzma, is involved in the transporting of Yosef's Oren. So it's a lesson in general that think of situations that come around, and the Rebbe says the Seirah Legabe the Eibishter, when it says in the Agod the Shliach the Malach, but Bechvei the Uba'atzmai, there's the Sikh of the Rebbe somewhere where the Rebbe says sometimes the lesson that we take from this is Bechvei the Uba'atzmai. You alone have to be the one that deals with it. You might think to yourself that you should delegate. No, some things you can't delegate. Moshe Rabbeinu can't delegate dealing with the Oren of Yosef. And that's also a sign of respect. Moshe to the previous generation. V'chulu v'chulu. Okay, so that's another lesson that we learn out, that it says, Vayikach Moshe, Moshe himself is the one who deals with Yosef, and the lesson that we learn out from it. Now, I'm going to say another aspect. The Rebbe doesn't go with this mahalach at all. We'll get to the Rebbe's word soon, but I think it's another unbelievable lesson in Avodah. And that was what I said before. Hayomerav hayonois. On a certain level, besides for the Rebbe's whole mahalach and the sikha, that Yosef's body is the tool that gives us the power to be able to thrive. But there's another point. The sea split in honor of Yosef. That's what the Medrash and the Zohar talks about it, is the meaning of the words Hayom Rav Hayonois. The sea saw the Oren of Yosef and it fled. What's the connection? So the Medrash and the Zohar, they bring out a moiridik vort navedas Hashem. Wow. And that is, it says in the story of Potiphar's wife trying to seduce Yosef. The pasuk says, "Vatispesu bebigdoi leimer shichveimi, vayazoi bigdoi biyodo, vayanos vayetze achutza." She caught hold of him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand, and he fled and went outside. So just like it says by Yosef Hayonos, he fled. Hayom Rav Hayonos. Just like Yosef fled, the Yam fled. The water ran away. In other words, it split for Bnei Yisrael. And the way it's explained, Moed de Kapshat, when you think about it, the Yam was thinking to itself, my nature is to be flowing. Why should I change my nature? This is all Avot and Avodah, but it's brought on the Medrash and Zohar. And then when the Yam saw Oren Shal Yosef, that here was a person, a tzaddik, who went against his nature. Yosef was 17 years old, and he was subjected to the greatest Nesoyin. As explained, the details, how Potiphar's wife never stopped trying to make Yosef fall. She used all her charms. And still, in the end, Yosef fled. What does it mean he fled? He went against the nature of any boy, male, 17 years old. So the Yam Hayom Ra, it saw that something could go against its nature completely, which according to Chassidus would mean you went against your Teva, which is Al Derech HaNes. So then the Yam said, Ebazei, I could do the same thing. Hayom Ra, and saw the Vayonas of Yosef. So then it decided it could also go against its nature and make way for the Yidden. Now, according to Primius and Yonim, it's so unbelievable, the Pshat, because here we see, Mamish, a lesson in Aveda. Most people are dealing with small things. In their mind, I will speak Lashon Hara, I won't speak Lashon Hara. I will fall through this Aveda, I won't fall through this Aveda. What difference does it make? What do I amount to B'chal in the grand scheme of things? I'm a nobody. What's the difference if I fail in my test against my taivas, or I don't fail against my test of my taivas? Comes the Alter Rebbe in Perich of Zayin in Tanya and talks about Kadiskafi, Sitrachere, Staliki, Koredu, Kutchebrichu, Bechul Almen. Now's not the time to elaborate in chapter 27. Tanya, read there, see there. But the Alter Rebbe's point is that the nachas that the Eibishter has from your struggle and not giving it to your Yetzirah, kadiskafi sitrachere, when you subdue your sitrachere, is talik. And if you look at the commentaries, every one of these words shows on a drawing down of Hashem's infinity, not just the regular light. The word is talik, goes on Hashem's infinity. Yekore goes on Hashem's infinity. The Kutchebrichu goes on Hashem's infinity. Bechul Almen also refers to a light, that in relation to that light, it's Bechul Almen. Everything is equal, so we're also dealing with the light of infinity. And the point is over here, Kadiskafi Sitarachre. With one time that you wanted to say something bad about somebody else, and you did not, Beilam Piv Miladaber, you were Kadiskafi Sitarachre, Stalik Yekore, the Kutchebrichu, Bechul Almen. You drew down the glory of Hashem throughout all the worlds, all of reality, all the olamas, and you gave him the greatest nachas ruach. As it's understood in that Perek Tanya, the Alter Rebbe brings out that there's two sorts of pleasures the Eibishter has, see there, and what it comes out from there that the Eibishter's nachas, in such a case of iskafir, is greater than any other thing. Ways how a person serves Hashem. See there. And I said this many times, the Melech verbringt, he's one of my mashpiyim, and he used to verbring, he said that the Rebbe didn't pick up his hand from under the table, usually. It happened in the 40 years of history, 45 years of the Rebbe's Nesias, but it was rare. But the Melech said there was one verbringen, the by verbringen, and the Rebbe was talking about iskafia, and the Rebbe said, mit ein iskafia ket mini began say the shtauslas. With one iskafia, we turn around, we turn over the entire order of the descent of all the worlds, which means from Ein Sof, with one small thing that you did, you changed everything. You drew down an infusion of infinity that changes and has an impact on every single iota of existence, from spiritual realms to the physical world. That's what it means. Kadiskafi sidrachere is tali kikore du kutshebricha b'chul almen. Now let's go back to the story of Yosef. Hayam ra vayonois. Yosef did one ma'aseh. No one's going to know. It's private. It's behind closed doors. And look what happened. As a result of that, the immediate result. He's framed in the complete opposite manner. He's completely innocent, and then he's framed that he did something low. Bad enough that he's framed and his name is bashmutzt, defamation. Then he's put into prison for a couple of years. And he's an innocent person. Could there be anything more painful than a person who had to dig deep inside himself and reveal his deepest moral core to fight that taiva, which is the greatest temptation you can imagine? And he withheld, and he was strong, and he overcame that test. And nevertheless, bang, what's the immediate result? Frame, prison, dungeon, you name it. Look what happens. Comes along Kriyas Yamsuf, couple of 100 years later, Hayom Ro Vayonos, what is considered one of the greatest miracles of all time in the history of Klal Yisrael, Kriyas Yamsuf, the sea parted. Why did the sea part? In the merit of Yosef HaTzadik. One iskafye caused Kriyas Yamsuf. So that's an amazing, amazing lesson in Avodas Hashem. Now let's get back to the Sikha. Everything takes time. The Sikha, the Rebbe, is the word which is explained in Chassidus. What is the essence of Yosef? Rachel said, Yosef Hashem li beinach. When Yosef is born, Rachel said that Hashem should give her merit, she should have another son. In Chassidus it's explained that this represents, the name of something represents the person's essence. And what does the name of Yosef represents? The power to take an acher, other, Yosef Havayali Bain, acher, to take someone who's in the status of acher, a Jew is alienated, doesn't feel he has any connection to the nation. Some Jew living who knows where, doesn't want to have a part of the Jewish nation. He's a wayward son, a wandering son, call it whatever you want. He's wayward. He's an acher. Just like we call sitra acher, the other side, we're calling this person an other, because he's in a significant, obvious way, other, outside. Who knows, he might even be chas v'shalom, a self-hating Jew. To bring back such a Jew, you need mamish special powers. Who had that power? Yosef HaTzadik. That's what explained in Chassidus. Yosef HaTzadik is that level of Yosef Havaya Li Bein Acher. He could take the Acher and transform it into a Ben, into a son which causes his father to be proud, a healthy son. Now this goes together also in general with the thing this we spoke many times, there were very few tzaddikim that actually were living in a complete secular environment. Mitzrayim, Eretz Haaretz, and that's the chiddush of Yosef, even over the Avos, as we spoke many times. The Avos were very tzoyin, they were farmers, they lived secluded from the cosmopolitan city. And Yosef HaTzadik is the first one that's in Cairo, at that time one of the most advanced country in the world. And this is similar to the Rambam, and similar to the Rebbe, our Rebbe. Very few, not too many tzaddikim, found themselves in completely secular environments and were able to thrive even in those secular environments. And according to Chassidus, this represents the ultimate superpower tzaddik. That's how Chassidus explains that the brothers, the pasuk says, they lay kiru, the brothers didn't recognize Yosef because they couldn't fathom, it does not compute. How could there be somebody? And the Zohar says that when Yosef was doing his accounting in Egypt, looking at the market and the financial situation for the country and for the world with the whole famine and all that business, he was on a higher level than when the brothers, the Shvatim, were saying Shema Yisrael. So the fact, it's a double wonder. The fact that Yosef HaTzadik could be Yosef HaTzadik in Ervas Haaretz, in the most decadent, corrupt, coarse country spiritually, that he could retain his spirituality, but not only that, his level of holiness is even overrides everything else. He's thriving. That's another definition to the word Yosef, more and more. But not only that, that as Yosef is there, in that, he's on a higher level than his brothers, as they're separate from the world. So this is the point that the Rebbe brings out in the Sikha. This is what it means. And the lesson of Vayikach Atzmos Yosef, we have to always remember that we were given this koyach. That's why Yosef is an essential component. He has to go on the Vayasav Elikim, Derech Midbar. Only a Yosef gives us the ability to be able to go in a Midbar Amim. A desert represents a place which is void of life things that give us food. Nochosh, Soreh, V'akrev, V'tzimoyim. As also it's explained in Chassidus, where it says in the Pasuk, you didn't follow the Eibishter Be'eretz Loi Zorua. And it's brought down in Chassidus that the meaning is, it's such a place, a desert, that the Loi is Zorua. There's negativity there, it's toxic. It's not only that there's no fruits, and it's not like a garden, it's not like a place which is meant to be livable. On the contrary, it's negative, it's a minus. Be'eretz, what's a desert? Such a place. Loi, the negativity, Zeruah is implanted there. And now we should be able to survive. So this is the pshat that Vayikach Atzmos Yosef. Moshe took the essence of Yosef. This is what it means, he took the essence of Yosef. What does it mean he took the essence of Yosef? The power of transforming Acher into Ben. And this is what we have with us throughout exile. A Yid has the power to thrive in the most challenging circumstances. Not only not to be affected, to go lower, but on the contrary, to go Yosef, Od Yoter Tov, V'od Yoter Tov, to climb higher in spirituality. Only Yosef had that ability more than any other tzaddikim. I started today's shir by talking about what happened this week, and I'm still in a state of awe. I never could have imagined what does it mean, the respect that I have for the Israeli soldiers. So the story is like this. B'kitzur, the last soldier was Sergeant First Class Ran Gvili. And the news came out and the entire country is turning over and celebrating. Millions of Yidden are celebrating. And what are we celebrating? We're celebrating the return of a body, not one that's alive. That a body that's returned to Kivrei Yisrael. So first of all, it's Mamash Gilei Lakuz. The world could see revealed. There's there's no other nation like it. There's no other people like it. That we're going to be rejoicing that a body is being returned. And the whole word of what is a body of a Jew? Am Kodesh. V'yata v'chatonu, as Alter Rebbe explains, goes on the fact that the Eibishter was boicher in the Jewish body. And all the halachas, whoever knows the halachas of Chevra Kadisha and how the body is respected, has an understanding of what this means. And here we see it in a revealed way like nothing else. And the commander of the unit that was in charge of the whole operation, this week, he started his talk that in the Pasuk it says, Vayikach Moshe Atzmos Yosef. Wow. Parshas HaShavua. He started his speech like that. So that's what right away grabbed my attention to talk about this and focus on this. You could start crying from joy and from the concept, how touching and moving it is. Basically, I don't like getting morbid, but I'm learning the lesson from it. They had to take a unit, they went behind enemy lines, they had to go into the territory, which now they're officially not meant to go into Gaza. They had to go into a cemetery, because they received information that Ran's body is there. With the unit, which I don't know how many men there were all together, there was 18 dentists. Because to identify a body, you needed dental. And they had to, there was like 800 bodies in the cemetery. Also crazy Ashgacha Pratis. after they got working on the 250th around body, this was the news, which Ran is Begematria 250, they identified that it was Ran's body. So I'm looking at myself and my comfortable life, and I'm thinking about it. Imagine if I was a soldier, and I'm now going on a mission which is dangerous. They encountered fire. I'm going now on a mission to a cemetery to exhume bodies, and actually it took 250. And what's it all about? To bring back a body. Guf Kodesh, Am Yisrael. And the commander says, Kulam Beshalach. He said it a couple of times about the idea that the Israeli army will put everyone involved just for one person. And over here it's for one body. I don't care what anybody's going to tell me. Other countries that talk about not leaving any bodies behind. There is no such a story in the annals of history. This is unbelievable. Mesiras Nefesh. And to what ends? One Yid will go for another Yid. And it's all so Pashut when you look at it mitzad Torah, mitzad Yiddishkeit. What is a Guf Kodesh? One Yid is every Yid. One Jew is the entire nation. And this teaches us such an unbelievable lesson. If you're going to have I don't know how many soldiers are involved in the whole mission, but let's say, for example, 100. Maybe I'm wrong. But imagine 100 soldiers are going on a monumental mission just to find one body. And they're putting themselves in danger. All to retrieve a body. So the lesson in this is obviously Shol. Now, another thing that hit me this week on a side point, but connected with the idea of Yosef Avayeli Bein Acher. This week I had a student of mine that lives in Germany, visited me. And we were talking about life, Jewish life in Berlin and in Munich. And then also this week in Melbourne, a shliach in Krakow, Poland, came to visit. So what I gathered from both of them, I was just thinking to myself, wow, what happened after World War II? What's Judaism like today in Krakow, Poland, and in Munich and in Berlin? So without elaborating, it is so difficult for these Rebbe Shluchim that are in these places working to keep the Jewish spark alive. And I've heard from the people that are dealing with the Shlichus in Krakow and Poland, we're dealing with Jews that are still hiding their Jewishness today. And children that the parents haven't even told them that they're Jewish. It is so covered up. And the shliach, what he has to deal with to try to uncover the spark. The only way that the Rebbe Shluchim are matzliach, because they have the koyach of Yosef Havayeli Bein Acher. The success of Shluchim to be in places like Germany and Krakow, Poland, and still keep the flame alive and to reignite is an unbelievable koyach, and you have to be connected to Yosef HaTzadik, and that's the connection to Yud Shvat. The Rebbe in the Sichen Chelik Vov explicitly says that it's the Frierdiker Rebbe with his koyach he also gave to our generation this Yosef Havayeli Bein Acher, to go in the most distant, far-flung place where you'll find another Jew who has completely separated himself from his whole ideology and his whole identity, and now we have to reignite that spark, and that's what we have to do, and this is the koyach we got from Atzmois, from the Etzem of Yosef HaTzadik, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And obviously this is also the connection to the Rebbe, because even though Shlichus began with the Frierdiker Rebbe, but there's no question about it that the Rebbe, as a disciple, as the next Rebbe of the Frierdiker Rebbe, took Shlichus to a totally incomparable, unparalleled level. We're not going to elaborate now, but more than you ever could imagine. The whole Varta, wherever Coca-Cola and Chabad houses are, wherever there's Jews, is the Rebbe's accomplishment. The fact that Chabad is everywhere, in Erva Saaretz, Las Vegas, Nevada, Poland, you name it. It's all the Rebbe's Keiches. It's all the Rebbe's Keiches. and it's an extension of the Yosef Avayali Bein Acher. So the Eibusher should help. We should take all these lessons that we took from this word of Vayikach Atzmos Yosef and apply it. Everything we spoke about. First of all, doing a miracle in your life. A miracle in your life is to go against your nature. One small step of man, one small eskafia of man, is one giant leap of Hashem for Klal Yisrael and for Gansei the Shtalshlis. And also the general point is we have to be Yosef Avayali Bein Acher. We have to be on the lookout. We have to think of others, care for others, and be very, very smart in how to reach out to every single Yid, no matter who it is, no matter how far it seems that he strayed, and he's now externally seen as an Acher. We have to treat him like and bring out the Ben in him. And one of the ways is to be like Yosef, a brother. When you be like a brother to the person, as the meaning of the Parshas shot in the pasuk is, Yosef Avayali Bein Acher, means that Rachel was asking for another brother. You have to bring out your brother, your Bruderschaft, to the other Jew by you displaying and projecting your warmth and affection and positivity to the other. You'll be able to transform the other into a brother, Bein. Maybe should help that after us, while we do all these things, this should cause the Eibusher to make miracles and more miracles. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.